Hey there, retro lovers! Let's rewind to the 1970s, a time of bell-bottoms, disco lights, and carefree childhood adventures. Imagine a world without smartphones, video games, or constant screens. Kids roamed freely, riding bikes without helmets, building tree forts, and playing outside until the streetlights came on. Neighborhoods were alive with laughter, chalk drawings on sidewalks, and impromptu games of kickball or stickball. Think about it, kids walking to school alone, unsupervised afternoons at the pool, and backyard adventures that tested courage and imagination. Households were buzzing with vibrant fashion, funky music on record players, and kitchens filled with the smell of fresh-baked snacks. Parents trusted their kids, communities were close-knit, and every day felt like an exciting mix of freedom and discovery. But many of these habits and everyday experiences, they're shocking by today's standards. Illegal, restricted, or totally unthinkable in modern times. The 1970s were a golden era of carefree childhood, daring adventures, and unforgettable memories. Curious to see what everyday things kids did back then that would get you in serious trouble today? Stick around because you won't believe how wild life really was. And make sure you hit that like button and share your favorite 70s memory in the comments below. Ah, the sheer freedom of riding in the back of a pickup truck in the 1980s. After a Little League game or a summer outing, kids would pile into the truck bed, wind whipping through their hair, laughter echoing down the street. No seatbelts, no worries, just a thrill of flying free. Every bump in the road felt like a roller coaster, and every sharp turn was a tiny adventure. It wasn't just transportation, it was excitement. Parents rarely panicked. In fact, many waved from the curb, calling out to watch kids hold the sides tight. Neighborhood streets were alive with this reckless fun. The feeling of camaraderie as you bounced along with friends, trying not to fall, is a memory many of us cherish. Today, riding in the bed of a pickup is strictly regulated, or outright illegal in most states, for good reason. Safety laws, liability concerns, and accident statistics have turned this once common practice into a cautionary tale. Insurance companies and police won't allow that kind of carefree joy. Yet, when we close our eyes, we can still feel the wind on our faces and hear our own laughter mingling with the rumble of the engine. The back of a truck wasn't just a seat, it was a playground, a place to bond, and a symbol of summer freedom. So let me ask, did you ever cling to the sides of a pickup bed with friends, heart pounding as you raced down the street? Those moments were pure nostalgic gold, and they remind us just how much freedom childhood once held. Back in the 1980s, drinking and driving was shockingly casual, almost a cultural norm. Imagine this. You're at a smoky neighborhood bar with friends, downing a few beers, maybe even a couple of whiskey shots, and then casually grabbing your car keys like it's no big deal. Parking lots buzzed with tipsy drivers pulling out, radios blasting classic rock. Nobody thought twice. Cops might raise an eyebrow if you were weaving across lanes, but unless you caused a scene, you often got a simple warning or even a friendly escort home. Fast forward to today, and that carefree attitude is not just frowned upon, it's a criminal offense. Thanks to relentless campaigns by MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and stricter DUI laws, even one drink can land you in serious legal trouble. Breathalyzers, checkpoints, zero-tolerance rules, society did a complete 180. And honestly, it saved countless lives. But if you lived through the 80s, you probably remember someone saying, "Don't worry, it's just a few beers." That phrase alone takes us straight back. The culture of freedom, recklessness, and trust in holding your liquor was everywhere. Beer ads even glorified road trips and parties without a seatbelt in sight. It's wild to think about it now, how something so dangerous felt so ordinary. So here's the big question. Were the 80s just more carefree, or were we collectively blind to the risks? Drop your retro memories in the comments. Did you ever ride shotgun with a buzzed driver and think nothing of it? Step into an 80s diner, and the first thing you notice isn't the smell of pancakes or burgers, it's the smoke. Cigarettes, cigars, even pipes filled the air like a permanent fog machine. Families sat down to eat while smokers lit up right at the table. Ashtrays were everywhere, tiny glass ones, metal ones, some overflowing with butts by the end of the meal. Waitresses in pastel uniforms cleared plates with one hand and tapped ashes out with the other. For non-smokers, too bad. You either dealt with the haze or chose a seat far from the smokers, which didn't make much difference. Kids coughed, your clothes reeked, and it was completely normal. That smoky aroma clung to your hair long after you left. Fast forward to today, and it feels unreal. With strict indoor smoking bans, the idea of someone lighting up in a family restaurant would cause instant outrage. Health codes, air quality laws, and public awareness completely changed the game. Now restaurants pride themselves on being smoke-free, with outdoor designated areas at best. But if you grew up in the 80s, you can close your eyes and still picture that haze over the salad bar. Cigarette brands were glamorized on neon signs, and nobody blinked at a pregnant woman having a puff with her coffee. Looking back, it's a time capsule of how differently we valued freedom over health. So tell me, do you remember walking out of a restaurant with your clothes smelling like an ashtray? Drop your retro smoke-filled memories below. Here's a blast from the past: cigarette vending machines. Yep, those shiny, coin-operated giants stood proudly in bowling alleys, diners, gas stations, and even hotel lobbies. No ID required. All it took was a handful of quarters, a quick pull of a lever, and out slid a pack of Marlboros or Camels like candy. For teenagers, it was the ultimate loophole. You didn't need to ask a sketchy older cousin or risk getting carded at the counter. The vending machine was your silent partner in crime. In the 1980s, this wasn't just convenient, it was cool. The chrome design, the glowing brand logos, and the clunk when the pack dropped down made it feel like a rite of passage. Some kids even bragged about which machine they hit up after school. Today, forget it. Laws cracked down hard by the 90s, banning cigarette machines almost everywhere. Why? Because kids had too easy an access. Now, tobacco sales are tightly controlled, with ID checks at every counter. The idea of a 12-year-old casually buying cigarettes sounds insane, but back then, it was normal. Think about it. You could walk into a pizza parlor, buy a Coke, and on your way out, snag a pack of smokes for your uncle or yourself. Nobody asked questions. It was freedom, temptation, and rebellion all wrapped up in one shiny machine. Kids of the 80s had toys that looked terrifyingly real. BB guns, cap guns, and even water pistols often mirrored real firearms. There were no bright orange tips, no safety warnings, and parents often encouraged backyard games of cops and robbers or sheriff and outlaws. The thrill of holding a toy that looked like a weapon gave endless hours of imaginative play, while neighborhoods turned into Wild West playgrounds. Unlike today, neighbors rarely blinked when kids ran around with plastic pistols. Safety laws and liability fears hadn't yet infiltrated childhood fun. Kids built forts, staged mock shootouts, and even traded guns in schoolyards without a second thought. Every squirt, pop, or metallic clack of a BB gun felt like total adventure. Fast forward to modern times, and toy guns are heavily regulated. Bright neon colors, orange tips, and safety warnings are mandatory. Any toy resembling a firearm risks police intervention if used in public. It's a total cultural shift, from carefree play to a safety-first mindset. Yet, there's a nostalgia in remembering those endless summer afternoons. Those toy guns weren't just toys, they were passports to imagination, teamwork, and harmless mischief. They taught strategy, coordination, and even storytelling. So here's the big retro question. Did you ever feel like a hero or a villain holding a realistic toy gun in your backyard? Those memories shaped a generation's childhood in a way that's almost impossible today. Share your action-packed stories in the comments. 4th of July in the 1980s was an entirely different experience. Fireworks stands popped up on every street corner, and kids could waltz up with a few dollars and walk away with bottle rockets, sparklers, and firecrackers. No ID required, no questions asked. Holding that bag of pyrotechnic magic in your hands felt like holding treasure. The excitement of lighting up your first sparkler or launching a rocket into the sky was unmatched. Accidents? Sure, they happened. Fingers burned, pants singed, even the occasional fireworks mishap in the backyard. But adults shrugged it off. It was considered part of growing up. Neighborhoods echoed with laughter, oohs and ahs as fireworks exploded overhead. Kids learned responsibility, bravery, and maybe a little recklessness. Today, the rules are very different. Strict age restrictions, permits, and safety regulations make it almost impossible for kids to buy fireworks on their own. Liability fears and public safety campaigns transformed the simple thrill of a sparkler into a highly supervised event. But nostalgia runs deep. Many of us still remember the scent of gunpowder, the thrill of a rocket streaking across the sky, and the way the neighborhood gathered to ooh and ah. Those nights weren't just celebrations, they were rites of passage. So tell me, did you ever clutch a bag of fireworks with your friends, hearts racing as you raced to light them before the adults noticed? Those memories are the sparks of our childhood. Share them in the comments below. Station wagons in the 1980s were the ultimate family adventure vehicles. Kids sprawled across the back, sometimes with pillows, blankets, or even snacks, creating little forts while parents drove. Seatbelts? Optional. Some families didn't even bother strapping kids in. They were too busy enjoying road trips, weekend drives, or a simple ride around town. The rear window offered stars at night, a perfect view while lying flat and dreaming. It wasn't reckless, it was everyday life. Kids played cards, teased siblings, or gazed out the window at passing landscapes, feeling a rare sense of independence and comfort. The station wagon wasn't just a car, it was a moving living room, a sanctuary, a place where memories were made. Fast forward to today, and things have drastically changed. Seatbelt laws, safety regulations, and public awareness make it unthinkable for children to ride unsecured. Car safety seats, booster seats, and mandatory belts ensure children are protected, but a piece of carefree charm is lost. If you grew up in the 80s, you can remember lying back, feeling the hum of tires on asphalt, and maybe imagining your own little adventure unfolding beyond the windshield. That freedom, the simple joy of sprawling across the wagon without a care, is something modern kids rarely experience. So here's a question for nostalgia lovers. Did you ever stretch out in the back of a station wagon, staring at the sky or chatting with siblings, feeling like the world was entirely yours? Those carefree rides are a priceless memory of childhood. In the 1980s, leaving kids home alone was almost routine. Parents trusted their 12-year-olds or sometimes younger to lock the door, make dinner, watch TV, and navigate a few hours of independence. Phone numbers of neighbors were posted, instructions were clear, and a sense of responsibility was quietly cultivated. Pizza deliveries, cereal boxes, and late-night cartoons became the staples of these mini adventures. Parents didn't hover with cameras or check apps every 5 minutes. They understood that independence was part of growing up. Kids felt the thrill of control, solving problems, making decisions, and even sneaking a little fun without supervision. It was a rite of passage, building confidence, problem-solving skills, and trust between parent and child. Compare that to today. Leaving a child unsupervised for even a few hours can be deemed neglect. Safety fears, liability concerns, and stricter social expectations have drastically changed parenting culture. Kids are monitored, supervised, and scheduled, sometimes to the point that a simple night alone at home seems unthinkable. For those of us who grew up in the 80s, the memories are vivid. Turning off the lights, whispering with friends on the phone, or making your own snacks. That feeling of independence, responsibility, and even mild rebellion is something we rarely experience in modern childhood. So tell me, did you ever relish the thrill of being left home alone, pizza in one hand and remote in the other? Those small moments of freedom shaped a generation, teaching resilience, creativity, and self-reliance. At family barbecues or holiday gatherings in the 1980s, it wasn't unusual for kids to be offered a tiny sip of beer. The idea was to teach responsibility or simply share a laugh as the child grimaced at the bitter taste. Adults around would chuckle, exchange knowing glances, and sometimes tell stories of their own first sips. It was a small ritual, a blend of humor, culture, and mild rebellion. The 1980s didn't take underage drinking as seriously as today. A single sip wasn't seen as dangerous. It was almost a rite of passage, a way to feel included in adult experiences. Kids learned early on what moderation meant, or at least they thought they did. The grimace, the cough, and the laughter created memories that lasted a lifetime. Fast forward to modern times, and underage drinking laws have tightened dramatically. Even a small taste can be illegal in many regions. Parents and authorities emphasize safety, awareness, and the risks of early alcohol exposure. Society's perspective has shifted entirely. Yet nostalgia keeps those memories alive. That one sip, shared with aunts, uncles, or older siblings, wasn't about rebellion. It was about connection, laughter, and cultural tradition. It's a tiny but vivid snapshot of how childhood and adulthood intersected back then. So here's a fun question. Do you remember the first bitter sip, laughing at your own reaction while the adults smiled knowingly? Those little rituals are a quirky, unforgettable part of growing up in the 80s. Step onto a plane in the 1980s, and one of the first things you notice isn't the engine roar, it's the smoke. Every section of the cabin had designated smoking areas, complete with tiny ashtrays in every seat armrest. Cigarettes were passed around, smoke lingered in the air, and a hazy fog settled over everything. Flight attendants moved gracefully, balancing drinks and snacks while smoke drifted overhead. For passengers, it was normal. You could light up, relax, and even chat over a cigarette at 30,000 feet. Kids squirmed between adults, often coughing, while the smell of tobacco permeated hair, clothes, and the air itself. Smoking on planes was just another part of travel culture, a mix of glamour, convenience, and rebellion. Today, the thought is unimaginable. Bans on smoking in all commercial flights, smoke-free cabins, and strict regulations have completely transformed air travel. Airplanes now emphasize comfort, health, and safety, making the smoky haze of the past a thing of history. Yet, for those who flew in the 80s, the memory is vivid. The smell, the flick of a lighter, the tiny ashtray's metallic click, these were all part of the adventure of flying. It was a time when rules were more relaxed, risks were normalized, and childhood experiences of travel were uniquely shaped by smoke-filled cabins. So here's a nostalgic question. Do you remember seeing that haze at 30,000 feet? Or maybe sneaking a candy while someone smoked nearby? Those smoky flights are a striking reminder of just how much things have changed. In the 1980s, hitchhiking was surprisingly normal. Kids and teens stuck out their thumbs at the roadside, hoping for a ride to the mall, a friend's house, or even a summer adventure. Parents didn't panic. They warned, "Be careful," rather than forbidding it outright. Drivers would often stop, giving a lift to complete strangers with a simple smile or wave. It was a different era of trust, community, and perceived safety. Hitchhiking was a symbol of independence. Teens learned navigation, communication, and a sense of self-reliance while negotiating rides. It was an adventure, fraught with risk, but also excitement. The journey was as much about people watching, storytelling, and bonding with friends as it was about actually getting somewhere. Today, hitchhiking is rare and considered dangerous. Safety campaigns, news stories, and liability concerns have changed public perception entirely. Parents now fear for their children, and legal restrictions in many areas make it nearly impossible. The culture of trust that made hitchhiking feasible has almost disappeared. Yet nostalgia keeps these memories alive. Remember the thrill of waving your thumb, seeing a car slow down, and climbing in with friends, sharing stories all the way? That mix of independence, risk, and excitement was unique to the 80s and shaped a generation's sense of adventure. So, here's a question for our retro-loving audience. Did you ever hitch a ride with friends, hearts racing, feeling like the world was suddenly huge and full of possibilities? Those moments were the epitome of freedom and trust. Halloween in the 1980s was the ultimate kids' adventure. Darkness fell, and children roamed neighborhoods with pillowcases wide open, collecting candy from houses that knew and trusted them. Parents didn't follow, curfews were light, and supervision was minimal. Pranks, laughter, and a little fear of the unknown made Halloween nights magical and unforgettable. Trick-or-treating wasn't just about candy. It was about freedom, independence, and imagination. Kids plotted routes, exchanged costume tips, and competed for the largest hauls. A scraped knee or a lost mask didn't matter. It was all part of the experience. Communities were tight-knit, and neighbors felt safe leaving doors unlocked with a light on. Fast forward to today, and Halloween is heavily supervised. Curfews, adult escorts, and neighborhood safety campaigns have changed the landscape. Children rarely roam alone, and trick-or-treating often feels more like a structured event than a spontaneous adventure. Yet the nostalgia remains. For anyone who remembers the 80s, you can still picture the excitement of darting from house to house, candy jingling in your pillowcase, hearts racing with every shadow and spooky sound. Those nights were formative, teaching independence, planning, and courage, all while having the time of your life. So here's a retro question. Did you ever roam the neighborhood until midnight, feeling the thrill of unsupervised freedom and return home with your candy bag overflowing? Share your Halloween stories in the comments. Imagine walking to school in the 1980s, alone or with a small group of friends, backpacks bouncing, sneakers scuffing the pavement. First graders, fifth graders, even middle schoolers often made the trek solo, building independence, confidence, and problem-solving skills along the way. Parents didn't hover. They trusted kids to navigate streets, crosswalks, and intersections. Walking alone wasn't just practical, it was empowering. Kids observed the world, greeted neighbors, and even learned a little street smarts. Every block, every shortcut, every detour was an opportunity for autonomy. Children experienced small adventures every morning, learning responsibility in a way modern supervised commutes rarely allow. Today, such independence is uncommon. Authorities and parents worry about safety, and even short walks are often supervised. While this ensures protection, it limits opportunities for kids to develop self-reliance, situational awareness, and the simple joy of exploration. For those who grew up in the 80s, the memories are vivid. Feeling the crisp morning air, chatting with friends, or racing to see who reached school first, those moments were small yet monumental. They shaped resilience and fostered a sense of accomplishment that only walking alone could provide. So here's a question. Did you ever stride confidently to school, proud of your independence, and maybe even feel a little grown up as you passed familiar houses? Those solo walks were more than transportation. They were early lessons in freedom, courage, and self-reliance. Playgrounds in the 1980s were a thrilling mix of fun and danger. Metal slides gleamed under the sun, swing sets creaked, and concrete or dirt grounds waited below. Children tumbled, scraped, and bruised themselves regularly, but that was part of the game. Falls were shrugged off, tears quickly wiped away, and play continued without pause. Risk was a constant companion, but it also built confidence, resilience, and problem-solving skills. Climbing structures were often high and challenging, and every daring leap or swing was a test of courage. The absence of padded surfaces, rubber mats, or strict safety regulations meant kids learned to gauge risk for themselves. Bruises, scrapes, and occasional tears were badges of honor, a visible sign of adventure and bravery. Today, playgrounds are almost unrecognizable. Safety standards, cushioned surfaces, and restricted equipment minimize injury risks. While children are safer, some argue that the thrill and challenge that fostered resilience and imagination have been diminished. For anyone who grew up in the 80s, you remember the rush of climbing to the highest bar, the shock of hitting the asphalt, and the exhilaration of jumping right back in. Those playgrounds taught courage, friendship, and creativity in a raw, unfiltered way. So, tell me, did you ever fall, laugh, and jump back on the slide immediately, feeling invincible despite bruises? Dangerous playgrounds weren't just childhood hazards, they were arenas of growth and unforgettable memories.